and welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 FM. I'm Paul Kretschmer. My guest on today and tomorrow's broadcast is Judy Gaman, whose thesis in life is, you can get more out of life by doing less.
Yeah, so I'm in Southlake, Texas, which is halfway between Dallas and Fort Worth, and I'm the CEO at Executive Medicine of Texas and the author of now an Amazon bestseller, Love, Life, and Lucille.
Okay. How is it that people have sped up their life so much that even though they think they're trying to get a lot done, or maybe they are under the impression they're getting a lot done, that you can actually be more successful if you don't try to squash so much into your life?
Well, this is a common problem that we see, especially at executive medicine, because we see a lot of executives that are not only putting heavy expectations on themselves, but also on their staff. So we're all living in a world where I call it the pop-up world. You're doing something, and suddenly you have a pop-up to go do the next thing. Outlook's notorious for this. When you get the little pop-up in the corner of your screen, and you see you've got a new email, and you think, oh, I got to tend to that, and pretty soon you've forgotten what you were working on. So it creates a kind of an issue with our brains, because our brains were never actually designed for us to do multiple tasks. And the whole multitasking is a great misnomer, because our brains themselves can only focus on one thing at a time. So the more things we're toggling between, the more fatigued we get.
I've noticed that people are often glancing at their phones repeatedly, sometimes at really, really frequent intervals. It reminds me of standing in line waiting to pass through a cashier at a store when the phone rings on the counter, and immediately the cashier, although they've got a live one right in front of them, who maybe only has to hand over the money or slide the card into the reader and complete the transaction and be on their way and out of their face, nonetheless, the cashier or whoever feels compelled to immediately jump onto that phone while maybe perhaps somewhat awkwardly attempting to do two things at once and maybe not succeeding all that great with either one.
Well, you're exactly right, and it is much like that. It's really that we've fallen into the trap of not following through to complete tasks. We have a task completion problem. We tend to jump from one thing to the next, and sometimes that means that we don't even get back to something we were working on. It's completely fallen off of our radar, because there really is only so much bandwidth that we have in our brains. And once we tax that, we're going to get fatigued, we're going to drop the ball, we're going to miss deadlines, we're going to miss important dates and times with our family, and then we get the other problem. We have the emotional stress from that and the feeling of a failure because, oh, I didn't get that done, or I meant to do that. And then we start thinking, do we have memory problems? No, we just have busy problems. Busy is a four-letter word that we need to kind of recognize and find, how can we take that out of our lives so that we are slowing down?
To tell a story on myself, I can think of at least two instances within the last 4 weeks. One day I was busy, as I often am, and I'm feeling a little bit pinned against the wall by your comments right now, because in some ways you're describing me, and it's a little uncomfortable, but I also appreciate that you have honesty behind your words, and so I'm not offended by them. But I can think of two instances in the last month where I didn't have a recorded 3-minute feature to run during the 10 o'clock news in the morning, which I normally do in the middle of the night because that's when I'm here. And another time when I was supposed to fill out a form regarding personnel hours. And I completely forgot about it until I thought about it earlier, but then I completely forgot about it until it was time for me to go home, which meant that I lingered longer than I would have liked and longer than my wife and my two loving dogs would have liked, because I could not leave without its completion. And the fact of the matter is, I had time, in the last hour or two before I was supposed to go home. I simply didn't have any recollection of it at that point, when I could have done it when I was otherwise just sitting at the control room mixer and playing music and reading newscasts and sitting there and maybe glancing through the paper at the same time. So there you go.
Well, what you described is so common for all of us. You just fill in the blanks with different job descriptions, and we've all been there. And one of the things I think that is so disturbing about what we're doing is we become zombies in our own lives. We're moving from one thing to the next. There was a term that was coined earlier this year, zombie eating, and that is when you actually sit in front of the television or the computer and you're eating, you don't even know that you're eating. You don't even know how much you ate, and how that has really disturbed our health and our well-being because we're doing these things. But you could really say we're zombie fill in the blank again with all these things that we're doing. We may not even realize, like you said earlier, people are picking up their phone and they're checking it constantly. If your listeners don't already have this on their phone, I highly encourage them to have a phone tracker that actually allows them to look and see how much time they spent on their phones and looking at social media and such when they really didn't even know they were doing it. I mean, they could be halfway between what they're doing for work and other things and just glancing down intermittently. But if you add all that up over the time of a week or a month, all the things you could have accomplished if you weren't so distracted.
In a way, having smartphones has not been a good thing because it actually allows us to text or email or look at social media or look at websites and, oddly enough, make telephone calls. All out of the same device, with the result that instead of waiting till you get home or waiting till you get to the office or waiting until you get to your next appointment and finding a phone someplace to make a phone call, you can do it right then and there on the spot. And the greater the capacity for that comes along, it's like the classic phrase, as the storage increases, the capacity to fill it up increases right along with it. And we're doing it big time.
Yeah, the more we feel like we're getting accomplished, usually the less we're actually accomplishing. And we've seen this in our workforces because we've gone to such a digital age where we say, oh, you know what, we're not going to call each other. We're just going to put these little messages in that'll pop up on their screens. And we've created a pop-up environment right there in the workplace. So even though everyone seems busy, how much are they actually getting accomplished within those hours? There's a lot of emotional and physical ramifications that come along with this as well. And we touched on some. You miss important deadlines and such. But the physical ramifications is we weren't meant to be sedentary. We weren't meant to be sitting in our chairs forever. But we can get so busy going from this site to that site to even just picking up our phone while we're at our computers that we can spend hours before we actually get up and move. And we've seen this where people don't even realize they've sat 6, 7, even 8 hours during the day. Maybe they even bring their lunch back to their computer, and then they go home, they sit down, they watch TV, and then they go to bed. So we're not moving the way we should be moving, and that's creating a lot of issues.
Just hearing you say that makes me feel a little bit physically tired just contemplating that sort of thing. How did spending time with someone over 100 change your life? I would presume that you thought of yourself perhaps at some point in your life as something of a workaholic yourself.
Yeah, I'm actually a third-generation workaholic, and I didn't really think of it that way. I just thought I came from, just this long line of hard workers and great work ethic, and I was just driving myself in the ground. And what we're describing about being busy was my life. I mean, every day from sun up to sundown. And when I met Lucille Fleming, the one I wrote the book Love, Life, and Lucille about, I actually got a chance to just stop, have conversations, go to lunch, have a friend, and everything seemed to stop. It was like going back in time or pressing the pause button. And what I realized is during that time, my happiness level went really high. My ability to actually get work done when I was at work went really high. My ability to write and do all the things I loved increased so much just because I experienced what it's like to stop, take a breath, and enjoy life again.
Judy Gaman, my guest today and again tomorrow on the WIHS Journal, whose thesis is, you can get more out of life by doing less. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretschmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from WIHS, Middletown.